Welcome to the Grand Ole Opry.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video because that's the only video you're going to see for the rest of this time period, because once you're inside the Grand Ole Opry building, there's no videotaping allowed. You can take photographs all you want, but they do ask that no videotaping is allowed. But as you can see, the grounds of the Grand Ole Opry are just beautiful. They maintain it very well. This was in the heat of the summer in July of 2022. Before we went into the Grand Ole Opry House for our tour, we stopped at this quaint little house just adjacent to the Opry House. This was once the home of Roy Acuff. Of course, Roy Acuff was the leader of the Grand Ole Opry for so many years. And once his wife passed, they moved him to this little house across the Cumberland River so that he, in his last 9 years of his life, could continue to MC the Grand Ole Opry, where he could just walk to work every day. And since his passing, it's sort of a museum now. This, the old Roy Acuff house, is now, at least for the moment, it's a salute to the 90s country music. And there are a lot of interesting things inside. As you can see here, you know what this is? This is the mullet wig that Billy Ray Cyrus wore on an episode of Hannah Montana. Of course, his daughter, Miley Cyrus, was the star of Hannah Montana. You can see Alan Jackson, even way back when he was on the Opry, wore the jeans that had many holes in them. How about this Grammy? This is an actual Grammy received by Alison Krauss. How about these rhinestones from Marty Stewart? Everything was just very well planned and a lot of exhibits. You can see Garth Brooks, an outfit that he once wore on the Opry, as well as Martina McBride and others. It was very pleasant. Really enjoyed this. And by the way, this was free if you had a ticket to the Grand Ole Opry Backstage pass, the tour, which actually was about $40. And in my estimation, well worth the money. All right, now we're finally in the Grand Ole Opry, and the first place they take you is this beautiful theater that seats about maybe 25 to 30 people. And up the top, that picture is in that theater that says Opry in the big red letters lit up with the white light. And then all of a sudden, a hologram comes up, and it's Trisha Yearwood and her husband, Mr. Garth Brooks. And the rest of the 10 minutes or so is a very moving tribute to moments of the Grand Ole Opry. Many of them were videos of today's country stars, the biggest country stars, who actually were weeping on stage when they were first invited to become a member of the Grand Ole Opry. As I said, that was a very touching tribute, and that 10 minutes was just an outstanding production by the Grand Ole Opry. Everybody enjoyed that. Then as we left that part of it, we took our backstage tour. If we looked up, the guide told us, you could see these guitars here, and there were rows of guitars. I've just got a few of them. But $9,000 worth of those guitars as you look up into the ceiling. Everywhere you go, there's murals, such as this one, or paintings of Minnie Pearl and of Dolly Parton with Porter Wagner. There's just all around reminders of how great country music has been over the past 100 years, and the great stars that have crossed the paths of each other, and many of them, of course, landing in the circle of the Grand Ole Opry at the Ryman Auditorium, and also here at the one near Opryland Hotel. Now we enter the part where the guests come in to the arena or to the Opry House, and right here is where they have to check in. This is a mailbox that has fan mail sent right to them of the Opry members. And there's a lot of it there. I don't know if they read all of it, but there's a lot of it there. We then went into an area and through a couple of areas. One was where, as you go through, the house band practices, whether it be a Tuesday night, Friday night, or Saturday night, or Sunday night, just before the Grand Ole Opry curtains go up. This is where they actually practice, kind of backstage, if you will. But that was pretty cool as well. Then we walked through an area that I didn't realize, but this area was an area that houses, or used to house, I guess, the production of Hee Haw for 13 years. There was a time when it was in Hollywood, but they moved it here to the Opry House for 13 years. And this is where they filmed all of those Cornfield County and all those corny jokes of Hee Haw. Then as you continue to walk through backstage, you finally get to see the dressing rooms. And there's many themed dressing rooms. You've got dressing rooms who may be stars who are veteran. They would stay in that dressing room. You have dressing rooms of people who were first-time Opry members or Opry participants on the stage. They had a particular dressing room for them as well. They had the women of country music, so only women could be in this dressing room. I'm guessing maybe 12 to 15 dressing rooms in all, including one that was dedicated, of course, to Minnie Pearl and little Jimmy Dickens and Roy Acuff, among others. You went into another room, and this mural right here, that is a mural that was drawn by Archie Campbell. You remember Archie Campbell from Hee Haw fame? And it was his reminiscence, I guess, a rendition of what the Grand Ole Opry looks like on a Saturday night. How about that? Then we finally got to go to an area where our guide told us this is where everybody is at one time or another before they get on stage. This is where the nerves happen, and they get all nervous, and some of the veteran country stars tell the younger country stars that everything will be okay, just breathe. But that's in back of this curtain right here. Then your name is finally called, and you come out on stage and you see the 4,200 seats, if you can see through all the lights and the cameras, the 4,200 seats of the people who are watching you as you enter the stage of the Grand Ole Opry. It was a terrific tour of the Opry stage itself. You got to walk around it, and in fact, they had, of course, being the terrific tourist attraction they do, they had a professional photographer there that could snap your picture in that famed circle, holding the microphone if you wish, and I did, at the Grand Ole Opry. It'll cost you about $20 or so. You went by an area where it said performers only. We didn't get into that room. But all in all, it was just a tour that was well worth the money. And the reason I went is because I saw a YouTube blogger that took me through the tour, kind of like I'm taking you, and I thought it was really, really interesting. And when I went and did it, it was even more interesting than what I thought or what I'd hoped. So I hope you enjoyed this little tour of the Grand Ole Opry Backstage in Nashville, Tennessee.